In the last hour, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived in North Korea for a two-day summit. It's his first visit in 24 years. The trip is raising plenty of concerns for the United States and its allies, both in Europe and the Pacific, about Kim Jong-un's recent support for Moscow and its war in Ukraine. Two countries are expected to sign a new strategic relationship, replacing previous documents they signed in 1961 and on Putin's last visit in 2000. Ahead of the meeting, the Kremlin announced it would seek alternative mechanisms of trade and mutual settlements that are not controlled by the West, and that the two countries would jointly resist illegitimate unilateral restrictions. The pair last met in September when Mr Kim travelled to Russia's Far East. On that occasion, they toured a space centre together, inspecting launch pads and rocket systems. One of the major concerns in the region is that in exchange for weapons, Putin will help Kim with his spy satellite system. The last launch of that spy satellite ended in failure just a couple of weeks ago. But it is entirely transactional, this relationship. In a recent interview with Bloomberg, South Korea's defence minister said the North had already sent 10,000 shipping containers to Russia that they estimate could hold nearly 5 million artillery shells. Let's bring in Hazel Smith, North Korea analyst. She's advised the United States and the British government on North Korea issues. Welcome to the programme. There's not much the West can do about this, is there? Both countries are under already very tight sanctions. A lot of these missiles and weapons are going via train. Is there anything the West can do to stop it?
There's not much. You're absolutely right. North Korea is the most sanctioned country in the world, and Russia, of course, has sanctions mainly because of Ukraine. So they're partners in that sense. But we have to remember that they are not equal partners in this. North Korea is really needs Russian support. Russia temporarily needs something which North Korea has, which, as you rightly said, are the millions of artillery shells which it's been stockpiling since the 60s and 70s. These are very old. The quality is very bad. They've used some of them already in Ukraine, and South Koreans also have some evidence that, in fact, they are almost obsolete, that most of them don't work. But of course, in a war of artillery, which it is in Ukraine, it's quantity that matters as much as anything else. And as much as Ukraine needed support from the United States in terms of munitions, Russia's production facilities and its stockpiles of artillery shells have also diminished. And they figure out that they need a couple of million more for them to take them through the war and give them a chance of winning by 2025. So temporarily, North Korea has something that Russia needs, and North Korea also needs grain and oil. It's a very poor country. It's one of the poorest in the world. It's got 25 million people. They're on the verge of starvation, and they don't produce enough food for themselves. They don't have their own oil. So there is a transactional exchange there, which means at this moment provides a useful bridge for them to get what they want. It's not the base for a long-term relationship.
Right. It got me thinking today. I remember many years ago, actually, around the time of the Arab Spring, I was reporting from Benghazi in Libya, and I went to an arms dump, and the boxes in the arms dump were all stamped with North Korea. So Colonel Gaddafi had been buying weapons from North Korea to fill a shortfall. He too was under sanctions. And so I just wonder if the North Koreans actually do this, that they create weapons to buy influence around the world, and how many factories in North Korea are doing this. So we're talking about millions of rounds going by trains. Are there hundreds of factories that are producing this kind of stuff?
Well, you're right to note the Syrian connection, but one of the issues is that these are stockpiles. The North Koreans have been producing them because they think that they've always thought since the end of the Korean War in '53, that they might have to face a war again. And so they were produced for home use. Since the end of the Cold War, when their economy basically tanked and has got even worse after the very expansive sanctions of 2016 and 17, their manufacturing capacity has collapsed. So yes, they still do have munitions factories, but nowhere in the country do they have a manufacturing capacity that is capable of producing anything either to quality or in volume. And that's whether it's tractors or whether it's artillery shells. Of course, the things that they're producing, the artillery shells, are, as Ukraine feedback and South Korean feedback tells us, already poor quality, but they simply don't have the capital equipment, the intermediary goods that are necessary to keep factories going, to keep on producing. So what you're talking about is the stockpile, which they want to get rid of, and which they don't necessarily want to get rid of it, but they want the money or the swaps. It's interesting that Putin's talking about different
swaps. But on that score here, so just very quickly, I haven't very much time, but do you buy this argument that the Russians would give them highly technological kit for their spy satellites? Because presumably that could be shared. You could have a proliferation problem. And I mean, this is really sensitive stuff that Russia has. Why would they give it to the North Koreans?
Well, historically, they haven't. Russia and even the Soviet Union before has been very slow to give North Korea what it's always wanted from them, which is advanced technology. So there's no record of them doing this. If they are going to do anything, the issue about spy satellites is that although the defence establishments in the West get upset about all of this, the support for satellites is less of a problem for the defence establishments in the West than support for, say, advanced ballistic technology.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But it's still unlikely, given Russia's actually, I think, very transient interest in North Korea, and also given its historic reluctance to give the North Koreans anything in terms of advanced technology, that we'll see a follow-through. It would be surprising if there was a follow-through in terms of that sort of swap, but not surprising so that they would get oil and grain.
Hazel, always good to talk to you. Thank you for coming on the programme.
Thank you.